Wherever there are shadows, there are people ready to kick at the darkness until it bleeds daylight. This is Bleeding Daylight with your host, Rodney Olson.
Welcome. You can connect with us through our social media links and find many other Bleeding Daylight episodes at bleedingdaylight.net. Today's guest will remind us that small acts of kindness can make a huge impact. I'll introduce you in a moment. Please think about who else would benefit from hearing this episode and let them know where to find Bleeding Daylight. Many of us have faced pivotal moments in life where our decisions can take us down different paths with vastly different outcomes. For Matt Shoup, that moment came while he was handcuffed in the back of a police car at the age of 19, and we'll talk more about that decision later. Matt is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt who has travelled the world, raised an amazing family, and he took his last $100 to build a multi-million-dollar business. He's an entrepreneur, author and keynote speaker, and I'm so pleased that he is joining us today on Bleeding Daylight. Matt, thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me here. It's great to be here today.
With an introduction like that, we might be forgiven for thinking that life has been going pretty smoothly for you, but I know that that's not always the case. Take us way back to your upbringing. What was life like in your early years?
Thanks for asking. And I think, one of the things that I'll preface with is going on podcasts. I've got my bio that I send to the host, and it's all of the highlights, right? All of the great things to give me credibility. But no, life's been a struggle, I think, just for everybody, right? Everybody faces challenges, ups and downs. We all just went through a crazy time with COVID. So no, I'm happy to talk about that. Things that I remember, core memories from my upbringing is I lived in New Jersey, northern New Jersey, on the East Coast here of the U.S. until I was 10. I got in trouble a lot. I got bullied a lot. Didn't really fit in to, a lot of different friend groups or anything like that. So I was kind of an outcast. I was real brilliant, though. I was super smart. So I would excel in school. They didn't keep me busy, so I went and got in trouble. I got bullied a lot too, so I was just really scared of the world. That was one thing that I remember, just always, fearful to go out there and experience the things that I experienced. So we moved out to Colorado from New Jersey. Looking back, what a great decision. A lot of the kids that I ran around with back in the elementary years in New Jersey, they're either dead in prison or they just disappeared. It was a good move that my family made, and my exposure to business and entrepreneurship was at 10 years old. Asked my parents for $200 to buy a boombox, a big radio CD player. They said, no, you have to find a way to make your own money. Sorry. And all I knew how to do at that point was cut grass, right? Mow lawns. I cut my family's grass. They paid me a couple dollars a week. So I just walked up and down the street and learned about business, knocked on doors and mowed lawns. Growing up, though, business became for me a real deep sense of security, certainty, and validation. That was the first time in my life that I really felt validated and appreciated and saw that I brought some kind of value to the world. I would also say growing up, there was no conversation of or an exposure of faith or Jesus or anything like that in my early years. So that did not happen in my family of origin. And that's a real quick flyover of my childhood.
You mentioned that you were bullied as a kid. You didn't feel that you fit in. And of course, those early years, we just want to be part of the group. We don't want to feel like we stand out. And I know that led you down some pretty dark paths, didn't it?
It did. Yeah. I think, any human, right? That's one of our basic needs on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need food and shelter and security, but then just that sense of belonging, right, to a group. And yeah, I didn't feel that. I didn't have that. So, my confidence was wrecked from a very early age. You go out and, I was a goofy looking kid, buck teeth, headgear, very easy target, not confident, real skinny, real easy to pick on. So you have enough of these experiences in the world, and then you start to conclude things about the world, right? Like everybody's out to get you. People deep down are cruel, not loving, things like that. So that will just continue to manifest itself into later years. Same programming, but different things that'll grab hold of you.
And so you turn to abusing different substances. Was alcohol. There was drugs.
Yeah.
How did you slide into that?
Never really felt that I fit in. Business was my thing. So when I got into that space, I was kind of a loner. I just went and I worked hard and I made money. But obviously, as you're, getting into middle school, high school, early college years, you need to find a peer group to belong to. And that peer group that I found some relationship with, their Friday, Saturday nights were drinking and drugging. Some other experiences with other like work colleagues, because I ended up then working just hourly jobs at, local restaurants and things like that. So just a lot of those kids like to party. And within that partying, you quote unquote, right, I'm doing air quotes now, you make friends, and those friends are there for you, but they're there to party with you. And that's what I did.
So was it a case of using the alcohol and drugs to numb the pain, or to feel that you fit in with this group of people who were also doing these things? Or do you think it was a combination of both?
I would say absolutely. Yeah, it was absolutely both. That acceptance and validation happens because you're doing the drinking. If you're not going out doing the drinking and the partying, then you're not part of that group, and then you're not accepted. And then that brings up, so it's a cycle. And I don't know if there was one more than the other. Again, like when you get into that, that's now another idol. It's another thing that you find some certainty and security in, and obviously it chemically changes your body, and you just do stupid things when you're doing that.
We've kept listeners in suspense for perhaps long enough, because I mentioned in the introduction that there was some incident in the back of a police car while you're handcuffed. Tell me how you got into that situation in the first place.
I will. Can I back up? Because I think that moment in the police car was a super pivotal moment in my faith journey. But just kind of leading up to that, to kind of lay some groundwork and perspective, is my first exposure that I remember to any conversation about God, about Christianity, about Jesus, was early high school. Had a couple of friends, and they were, I called them the Bible thumping twins. It was twin brothers. They were all about Jesus. It was their life. It was everything. They invite me to Bible study, and I didn't really know what this was about. I heard rumors, right, that Christians are very judgmental and things like that. So I get invited to a Bible study, and I go in there, and they look at me. They're like, "Who's this guy over here?" And they have this icebreaker question. And the icebreaker question, and remember, I'm 14, ninth grade in high school. They say to the new kids there in front of everybody, they bring them up in front of the room, and they say, "Are you a buncher or a folder?" And I looked back, I said, what are you? And you're laughing because you get it, right? So you know what they're asking.
The big questions of life.
The big questions of life. I'm standing there. I go, "Look, you guys are a little odd, a little different. I know I am too. And I'm not comfortable answering that." So I didn't answer anything. And they said, "Well, then you can't be here with us tonight." And I said, "What?" I go, "This is not a group I want to be a part of." You think of the game of American football, right? You start at a particular place on the field, and your goal is to drive down the field play by play, experience by experience. And, my faith journey, I just compare it to that analogy. Is I started really far down the field, no exposure, got into drugs and alcohol. Then I start having these negative experiences with people who are Christian. They're judging me. They're not accepting me. And it's just continuing to build this pattern and belief that I don't belong, that I'm not accepted. And I definitely don't want to hang out with you Christians. As I'm drugging and drinking in college, another core memory of that is walking home drunk every Friday night. And this guy across the dorm halls having a Bible study, sitting there reading the Bible, singing worship music. And not once did he invite me in to be part of the Bible study. He waited for me to walk by. He'd stop. He'd call out my name at the door and say, "Oh, are you drunk again tonight?" And very judgmental. And again, never showed the compassion of Jesus to me or anything like that. Just judged me. So I said, I'm going to go out and do drinking and drugs. Those experiences really made me decide and determine by about 19 that I don't want to have anything to do with Christians. They're judgmental. They think they're perfect and they're not. They want to point out everybody else's faults and they don't want to admit their own. So screw you guys, was what I said. And I share that backstory because this evening in the police car, what happened was it was New Year's Eve from 2000 to 2001. We were doing the typical weekend of Friday afternoon, start drinking, and you run that through all the way to Sunday morning. House party wraps up. I'm severely intoxicated. And the people in the house are like, hey, everybody needs to leave the house. So they're pushing everybody out of the house. And I said, hey, I need to get home. So I'm standing out. It's 1:30 in the morning, January, Colorado, right? United States, very cold. And I know the general direction of where my house is located. And I said, oh, if I just walk straight down this street, I know that this street pops out on the other main thoroughfare. So I just start walking. And I'm freezing, and that's all I remember. I'm freezing and I'm walking. And that street does not go straight through to the street that I knew it ended at. It actually stops in front of a house, and then the street kind of mouse traps through this neighborhood. And I approach this fence. It's maybe 3 feet high. And I start trying to climb this fence, and I'm struggling. I'm fighting with this fence. And a car pulls up behind me, and I kind of see the headlights in my peripheral. I hear a door open, and then I hear the door close. And a gentleman comes up from behind me. He grabs me by the collar of my shirt and my belt on my pants, and he spins me around and slams me into a brown Ford Astro van with his wife in the front seat. And I'm super confused. And then he says, hey, Fort Collins police, don't move. Said, put your hands behind your back. And he handcuffs me. And I'm still confused because it's not a police car. Like, his wife's in the front seat. She's embarrassed and frustrated. And there's 2 babies in the back seat. And I'm severely intoxicated. They bring a marked police car, throw me into the back of that police car. And this is where a really memorable, really pivotal experience happens for me, Rodney, is this police officer, he did not quote the Bible. He didn't give me a Bible verse. He didn't tell me about Jesus. He just showed up as himself. And he told me a couple of things. He said, listen, son, it's real busy tonight. This computer screen in my car is filled with a lot of drunk people. And he said, if you're not that drunk that you can tell me how to get back to your house, then I'll drive you back to your house. He said, but I just want to let you know, because of what you are doing right now, like these homeowners had called the cops on you. They saw you walking down the street. I have the authority, the power, the control to punish you, to judge you, to put you in jail, to take you to the drunk tank, and to make your life pretty miserable. But I don't want to do that. He said, you've been respectful. You seem like a nice guy. How do you get to your house? So I told him, and he drove me home. And takes me out of the police car, walks me up to the front door, unhandcuffs me. Again, didn't quote a Bible verse. I don't know if he was a Christian. I don't know his name. I really just remember it was a male police officer from the city that I'm going to college in. And he unhandcuffs me, takes me to the door, and he says, hey, I think there's people out there that love you and that would not want to see something bad happen to you. And I hope next time I run into you that you're making better choices in life. There's a better way to do life. I just hope you make better choices. It was something to that degree. And then he lets me go, and I go home. I get really sick. I wake up the next day. And that experience, I don't know why, Rodney, it was just Jesus was there in that experience. He had the complete power, authority, and control to judge me and punish me, just like all these other people that I was perceiving was doing this to me. They were judging me. They were condemning me. And this guy just loved on me, just right where I was at. And he took care of me, and he didn't try to save me per se for the kingdom of God. He just loved on me. And I woke up the next day, and that experience really lifted the scales off of my eyes to all of the other people that were in the faith standpoint, that were also loving on me, that were also there for me no matter what, that weren't pushing anything on me, that were just meeting me where I was at. And saying, hey, if you ever need to have a conversation, you want to talk more about this Jesus guy, just give me a call. All I remembered because of all that painful upbringing were the negative moments. So I wake up the next day, and I would say, Rodney, I was exploring faith. I was talking to people. They were, sitting down having coffees with me, and I just couldn't get over the negative experiences. But that police officer, he drives me down the football field just a little bit more. And then those next couple of weeks after, I reached out to these people that were there for me, and they drove me down the field just a little bit more, had to make up a lot of ground. And then it was, January 14th, 2001, I gave my life to Christ.
It's an interesting journey to get there, and there's a couple of things there that I'd like to explore. Firstly, those people that you had encountered in the past who weren't showing the love of Christ to you at all. They were showing judgment. And I guess we can easily do that. If we decide, no, we're in the right and everyone else is in the wrong, then we're going to show judgment. But the other thing is, I think there are some very well-meaning Christians who would love to reach out to people, but if they saw someone who's drinking and taking drugs and just carrying on with that kind of life, they might think, oh, they wouldn't be interested. And yet I suspect, by the way that you're talking, that if in that moment when you were coming home drunk from parties and you were passing by that guy's door who's running the Bible study, if he had actually dared to ask you, you might have even considered it.
Absolutely. And it was really interesting because I ran into him not too long ago, and we can share that story later. It was really funny. But yeah, no, he never said, hey, Matt, come in. Do you want to grab I think he was always eating like Chipotle or something. He never said, hey, you want to come in for a Chipotle? He just said, oh, are you drunk again? That was his question. Hey, Matt, are you drunk again? I can smell you at the door. It was almost a challenge to get more drunk so he could smell me more, right? Coming home, I'm competitive. And but never invited me, never. And, he's 19, he's figuring things out. He has a story too. So I don't sit here and condemn him or judge him or be upset. It just is what it is. That was an imprint in my life and my story. But yeah, it shouldn't be that complicated. And I think we make it overcomplicated sometimes. Just love on people, understand they have a story, whether they seem pretty buttoned up or they're, drunk in a ditch in a gutter somewhere. Everybody has a story. All humans have those same needs at the end of the day, and just love on people and ask them real open-ended questions. I remember one of my friends one night after this was going on said, hey, are you okay? Why are you doing this? Obviously you're doing this every weekend, but you're brilliant. You're also going to school and working and running a business, and you're crushing it in that. So what's this 180 you're taking for 48 hours every week?
And it's interesting too, you would have come to faith at that point where you had some of those questions answered in that time between New Year's Day that didn't go so well for you through to the 14th when you say, I need to make a decision that will radically alter the direction of my life. And you enter into this new faith in Jesus. And yet at the same time, this has not been part of your lifestyle. This hasn't been part of your upbringing. I guess sometimes for those of us who have been brought up in the church, we at least know where we're going to go. If we make that decision, we've got some of the backstory. How was it for you in trying to fill in all those blanks to understand this faith that you'd just thrown your lot in with?
It's interesting because my kids, Emily and I, we look at our kids and we obviously have exposed them to that since they were little kiddos. And, at 6, 7, 8, they both said, yes, I want to give my life to Christ and I'm going to get baptized and all of those things. And that's amazing. It's like, okay, they need to take that journey, right? With us guiding them through that time that they're teenagers and they really get into their formidable years and then they really believe in that, right? It's one thing for a 7-year-old to say it at 7 years old, but then there's really that exploration where they really commit to that. But I didn't have that. So looking back, I didn't realize at the time. I just said, hey, I'm 19. 2 Corinthians 5:17, anybody in Christ is a new creation. Old has gone, new has come. So there was that transformative moment for me. And I didn't really think of like, here's the ground I need to make up or ground I need to cover. I just started jumping in and digging in. And I don't think going back that I wish I would have had it different. I wouldn't trade or exchange that story because I think my story really helps and relates to people. I mean, Jesus went out and was looking for and searching for and healing and saving the lost and the sick. So I appreciate my story and I'm very thankful for it.
What about the friends that you'd been out drinking with most weekends? What did they think of this change in your direction?
It's really funny because, the plans for the next weekend were, it's like, what am I going to do? Because I know I'm not supposed to be doing this, right? I have this whole new life and I didn't change my friend group. So the people that I was running around with, they were still doing the same things. And I would share too, like for me, the drugs stopped immediately. The minute I gave my life to Christ, didn't touch a drug again. The drinking didn't though. I would go out and try to justify, well, I'm not going to go have 15 drinks and then fall down in the street. I'm going to go have 6. right? So that's where that started. That was the maturity level I was at. It was just this interesting journey of still being with friend groups, and some of my friends were other Christians too, believe it or not. And we were out just going through this journey together. That was the true reality of it. Never touched a drug again, and the drinking thing I would say it tapered off through the end of college. I went over to Spain for a semester, so. 1 year later, I spent my spring semester of 2002 over in Spain. That was a really great time for me to step away from everything and everybody that I knew here in the States and really just be on my own and, figure out my faith, just figure out who I was as a man. So that was a really great time. But that time from 14th of January 01 to, beginning of January 02, it was just it was an interesting time of just being in this back and forth space.
Tell me about that time in Spain, because I know that that's left a huge imprint on your life.
I started studying Spanish in middle and high school, and then I did some elementary tutoring in high school and ended up doing translating for Spanish-speaking families. There was a big population of them there at the school. Spanish just came easy to me, so I said, I'm going to go to CSU college, Colorado State. Everybody's going to college. That's just what you do. I'm going to minor in Spanish, and we'll see what happens with the rest. And Spanish professor, I have to give a huge shout out to her. Her name's Maria del Mar. She comes up to me at the end of Spanish culture class every day. She'd always correct my papers. She's like, here's all the red marks on your papers. You need to say this, not that. She goes, but you need to go to Spain. You need to check out my beautiful country. And here's what she says to me. There's beautiful women and sangria and partying. She didn't say like, hey, there's history, culture, and you're going to learn the language more. She goes, you'll learn the language, but you need to go check out Spain. So I just sign up on a whim. And I go over there for 5 months. I live with a family, but for me, it was an escape. So in one aspect, it was an escape. I was very tied down to business, Matt. I was working with a college painting company, had never really flown the nest or left the nest per se from family of origin. They were close by. I was with them a lot. So I had this bubble of experiences here. And I thought that was the only world that existed. So when I go over there, I fell in love with the country, the people, the language. Host family I stayed with was amazing. It was interesting because my faith was tested there. They're very, very Roman Catholic over there. So they would ask you, are you Catholic? I said, no. They go, what are you, Jewish? Are you Muslim? I said, no, I'm Christian. They go, so you're Catholic? I said, no, I'm Christian. They go, oh, so you're Protestant. So just interesting dynamic and conversations over there. But it was a great time to be alone and have space to find myself as just a man, as a student, and as a new believer.
And then when did family begin for you? When did you meet the love of your life and decide this is going to be part of my life going forward?
I have this amazing experience the spring semester of 02. I come back that summer, turned 21, and then in September of 2022, we were out salsa dancing at a local bar in the basement of a bar. Emily, my now wife, she got drugged there by her friend who liked to go salsa dancing. So, I learned how to dance in Spain. I go out. Emily's there, doesn't want to be there, and her roommate, who I knew, introduces us. And for me, it was love at first sight. She goes, hey, I'm Emily. I said, hey, I'm Matt. I think I'm going to marry you one day, is what I'm thinking. And then she was being bothered by this group of guys. They're asking her to dance, and she didn't dance. She didn't want to dance. And she goes, hey, will you be my fake boyfriend for tonight? I'm like, I'll be your real boyfriend forever. So we meet, and she didn't fall in love right away. We leave that engagement that evening, and she goes, hey, next time I see you, I just want to ask you one thing. She knew I was into her. She says, don't forget my name. The next time I see you, that was just a thing for her, right? She goes, just please remember my name. I said, okay, Emily, I'll see you soon. Run into her a month later, and you know what happens? I totally forget her name. She said, I'm writing this guy off at that point. And we end up having a bunch of classes together next semester. We were doing an activity and then going back to our seats. And I'm walking back to my chair. I have my coat on the back of the chair, and she's sitting in it. And I go, hey, Emily. And she goes, oh, hey, Matt. And then we just hit it off from there. And that's where things started.
So a bit of a shaky start, but you came through in the
Yeah.
end.
I came through in the end. Yeah, no, it was interesting. For her though, she had just gotten out of a relationship that didn't end well, and she had a very different upbringing. She grew up in a Christian home, was really looking for a solid Christian man, and she said, "Hey, the next person I get into a relationship with, it's because I'm going to be interested in getting married. It's not to go party. It's not to go have fun. It's not to go have arm candy boyfriend, something like that, right? It's like this is going to be my husband." And then she meets me, learns a little bit of my story. She's like, "Who's this guy who used to party a lot, says he found Jesus, went to Spain, now he's at the basement of a bar dancing," right? So she's real gun shy, totally understandable. Yeah, we kind of came from two different backgrounds, two different worlds, and just slowly started our life together.
We'd love to hear the fairy tale story that someone who has a difficult upbringing or a difficult life comes to faith and then suddenly everything's wonderful. And we'd love to say that that's what happened for you, but things didn't always go well. You ended up in a job that you hated and things didn't go well. Tell us a little of that experience.
I worked with a college painting company in college, and I made a bunch of money over 4 years in college, like 20, 30 times more than any college kid makes waiting tables, delivering pizza, whatever you do. But I spent 3 times what I made. So I graduate 2003, Emily in 2004. We get married the summer of '04. And I bought a house when I shouldn't have. And the mortgage loan officer, he was doing a lot of business. Again, I'm very idolizing of money and wanting to become a millionaire because I want to prove something to the world and screw the world. That was kind of my attitude, still very upset and angry. So I jump into the mortgage business thinking that's going to be this real sexy, glamorous, money-making business. And I absolutely hate it. I'm working at a bank, March of 2005. The new bank president that had just come in that week, I hadn't met him yet, but he calls me into his office and he's, nice suit, nice tie, big banker's desk. And I said, "Hey, I'm Matt. Nice to meet you." I stick my hand out to shake his hand and he says, "Go get all your stuff." He said another word and he said, "Go put it in a box." And I said, "What?" He goes, "You're fired. Get out of the bank. Like, get out of here." And then he said, "Maybe you should go do that painting thing." Again, I hate the job. It was the best, worst day of my life looking back. But again, just very judgmental, very condescending. "You're not good enough. Go get your stuff. Get the heck out. Go be a dirty painter," is effectively what he said and what I heard. So I'm standing in the parking lot of this bank with all of my belongings, professional belongings, in a box. And I just remember saying, I'm never going to work for somebody again. Definitely not somebody like that. And I'm going to go to this business thing. I've been doing this since I was a kid, and we literally had $100 left to spare. And all I knew how to do was knock on doors and generate paint jobs. So we launched M&E Painting. That was my first official business, right? And took $100, went to the bank. And that was after I came home. I got home about 1 p.m. and Emily says, "Hey, you're home kind of early today. Did you get a long lunch?" I said, "Yeah, it's a really long lunch." Like a not coming back after lunch. And she said, "You know what? I love you. I believe in you. You've got this." Like, went out and we did about $500,000 worth of business our first year. But I'll tell you what, I was angry, because the whole business story, right? When I speak to the business world, went from nothing, rags to riches, work hard. But, all this stuff, it's great. It's true. I did. I worked my butt off. I was so angry. I was so hurt. I had so much to prove. I was so focused on money and thinking that, big business Matt, that's going to take care of some of these hurts and pains and traumas. And you can build a business with that. Like, you can build something big, not necessarily great, but you can build something with that. And that only takes you so far. That really caught up with me a few years into business because nobody wanted to work for me. Nobody wanted to stay there. I was an awful boss to work for. You worked for me. I'm the boss. You do what I say. You make me money or you don't work here. That's not what business is all about at all.
And you got to be the sort of boss that you didn't like to work for, which is why you decided to work for yourself.
Yeah, it was really funny. So I'm a very type A, very direct, very assertive. Not too many people can tell me what to do. I just take charge. That's what I do, and I power up a lot in the face of stress and adversity. Whether that was real or that was a put on facade, that's how I presented myself. So there weren't too many people that could really tell me how it was. And I was working with a business coach, and this guy was just a big, physically big human, ex-military, no nonsense, no BS kind of guy. And he's like, Matt, what are you struggling with today? I said, well, I don't know why all these freaking people keep leaving me and what their problem is and why they're betraying me. And it's them. And he goes, Matt, cut the crap, shut your mouth, listen up. It's you. It's not them. Maybe nobody's ever told you this because they're scared of you, but I'm not scared of you. And don't you backtalk me. He was doing this with love, right? So totally fine. He said, it's you. Your leadership sucks. You're not good with people. You're angry. You need to get over the stuff that you need to get over. And if you don't do that, your business is not going to grow. I am a huge believer, and I speak on this a lot. Your business will only grow to the degree that you do personally. If you're not a business owner and you're listening to this and you're in a profession and you're working your way up the corporate ladder, if you're hitting a ceiling, the first thing you should look at is you and your story and why you're hitting it, and take accountability for that. I blamed the world for everything, Rodney, for everything that happened to me. Such a victim.
As a man of faith, how do you make sure that you're not chasing after the great American dream of just more and more and more money, that making money is just part of what you do, that is a tool to be used by you rather than it controlling your life?
We talk about being Christians. It's like, what are you grabbing onto with so much might that you can't let go of it, right? Like that's one of your idols. And money was for a long time. So I thought that, more money meant more security, more stability. And there's a lot of deep-rooted things neuropsychologically with me from my past to where that was all happening. But there was a real shift for me in business, is that money, profit, that's just a measurement of the degree that you serve people well with excellence. I used to think business was, marketing, and it is, right? Marketing, sales, delivery, collect money. You give a product or a service to somebody, they pay you, you're profitable. Profit first. Profit is the only thing that matters. You can't have a business if you're not profitable. It's like, well, hold on a minute. Who's doing all of this? It's people. And when I realized that business, it's just humans serving humans. And to the degree you serve them with excellence, there's a value exchange. You make money, but you also build relationships. But for me, when I went from being a boss to being a leader, I'm the leader of a company. I have a responsibility and a duty, and I take this very seriously, to contribute to the lives of other people that are spending 30, 40, 50, however many hours in the paint business. It's more than that in the summer. They're spending their life. They're dedicating themselves to what we've built. And I have a responsibility to take care of them financially. But then at the bigger level, what is their journey? What's their story? Where have they come from? I have a gentleman, he's now a full-time pastor. He came to work for me after he was a 4-time felon. Being able to be a part of his journey while we're making money doing business, it was such a greater achievement, accomplishment, contribution to the kingdom, being able to contribute to his life that way. And that's what business is all about. So yeah, I love business. I'm good at business. It's a gifting. The things I do is something the world needs. I love sharing stories and writing books. But what I want to leave behind, I'm really focusing now on the legacy and what I want to leave behind for entrepreneurs and for the people that I'm called to serve.
Matt, we talked earlier about those Christians who didn't act in very Christian or compassionate ways to you. And you did mention that you had since run into that young guy who was 19 at the time and could smell the alcohol on you. How did that coming together go?
So I'm at a Mexican restaurant with my wife. This is, 6-7 years ago. I had been doing a lot of speaking in the business space. I've been speaking in the business space for a long time, but I just started speaking and just kind of started sharing my faith story to men's groups, to small Bible studies, to a small team of pastors. So I'm getting ready to go speak this afternoon. Emily and I go have lunch and have a great lunch, pay the bill, get up. I look over my left shoulder and I'm like, is that Brad? I go, is that Brad? And she looks over because we were dating. She goes, that is. And she knew him from other avenues. I go, should I go say hi to him? She's like, Matt, don't go say hi to him. And she goes, I don't think he liked you in college. I go, yeah, I really didn't like him either. I said, let's just go say hi to him. So we get up. I go up to the table. I go, hey, Brad, how you doing? And he looks up. He says, Matt. And he just eyes get wide and didn't say like, hey, how are you doing? How's life? What's going on? He just said, what are you up to? And I said, oh, well, my wife and I started M&D painting. Oh, you're the M&D guy. So immediate, like same guy that he was, 20 years ago. I said, well, what are you doing, Brad? And he was telling me his resume of his contribution to the kingdom of Christ, basically, right? And so I played the business thing up a little bit. This is me. I'm a little facetious. I will get like this. I'm just, I'm just being honest. And I said, yeah, Brad, I go, we're growing companies, and I'm speaking, I'm getting ready to write a book. And he's like, well, that's nice. It was really good to see you. And I said, I'm actually going to speak right now. And he's like, oh, where are you speaking to? I said, I'm going to share with a group of pastors at my church my story about coming to Christ. And he was silent. And I said, it's really good to see you, Brad. And Emily and I walked out. And I'm just the one. It's like, what did that guy think? You asked a question earlier in the podcast. You're a believer, and maybe you run into somebody that's down in the dumps in the gutter. They're drunk. It's like, well, maybe they're not interested. It's like, yeah, maybe they really are. Maybe in 20 years you're going to run into them, and the impact you have, the way you show up, the things you say, maybe the hug you give them, the coffee you buy them, the handcuffs you put them in, and what you say to them in the back of a police car could be literally a turning point, not just for their life, but for their eternity. So my challenge, encouragement to listeners is just think about what that is. Everybody's got somebody in their life that needs Jesus, that is in a really bad place. When I share this story, it helps me remind myself how I need to show up for people. So, I hope this just serves as an inspiration and an encouragement. And, if you can't find a connecting place with a family member or somebody there under their drugs, alcohol, what do we have in common? Just, hey, I love you. I'm here for you. If you ever need anything, let me know. Want to go get a coffee? Want to go get a lunch? Give them a phone call. Shoot them a text message.
Matt, we've touched on a number of things, but mostly we've looked at your faith journey. There's a lot more to explore in the business world, in books that you've authored, and all the rest. So if people want to find out a little bit more about this story, what's the easiest way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, the best way is mattshoup.com. So on my website, I've got my bio, my story, my books. I take business leaders from all over the world to Spain on leadership retreats. And I've got some free resources there on my website that you can sign up for. And then that kind of starts the communication chain between us. And I'm pretty easy to find. Just reach out. And love connecting with people from all over the world.
And I will put links to your website in the show notes at bleedingdaylight.net. Matt, it's been a real joy to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and spending time with us on Bleeding Daylight.
Thanks, Rodney. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Bleeding Daylight. Please help us to shine more light into the darkness by sharing this episode with others. For further details and more episodes, please visit bleedingdaylight.net.